Welcome to another episode of the Babbling Pastor Podcast. The podcast is number one in your hearts, even if we aren't number one on them charts. I'm Michael, and this is
Rob.
Roberto. He's Roberto. Rob for short. Rob, I tell you what, I don't think. What's wrong? You got a problem over there? I thought you had a problem. Sometimes people just exhale, and it's got a lung. It's like a whole thing. I don't. Anyway, medical doctor. I'm getting my degree in medicine. Today we are going to be looking at another. The medication. I tell you what, I got my leeches in the mail, and the book tells you how to use them. It's a messy process. It's pretty messy. There's blood and. Anyway, all right. So, welcome to the. I can't keep going anymore. There's only so far my voice can carry. Hey, and if you don't know,
already lost everyone.
But here's the thing. Here's the thing. I am like the anti-social media guru, right? So people will tell you got to hook them at the beginning. Like get like the most viral part of your podcast, put it at the beginning, and then they're going to watch the whole thing for that one golden nugget. I'm like, hey, let's just put like just the worst thing out in front, and then if you stick around after that, you really want to be here. Right. So
well, you should begin every podcast with like, hey, everybody. Ah!
There is somebody that has like just turned that volume down so fast. They're like, dear Lord, what? They were on their gentle drives to work. And now it's like, had a
we just
moment.
lost someone to crash.
Well, hopefully not. Nope, that was for legal reasons. No, we didn't. We did not. Don't contact me about that. All right, today, see, if you're still here 2.5 minutes in, you want to be here, you're a fan of the show. I appreciate you sticking around. So, we're going to be looking today at a He Gets Us ad. Only it's not really a He Gets Us ad. It's like I don't want to say parody because I feel like that downplays what's happening here. How would you describe it? What would you?
I would describe it as this ad is a knockoff of the He Gets Us ads that actually makes the He Gets Us ad a parody.
Oh, I like how you spun it. Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. I like that. Okay. So this
baby.
Is yeah. So you may have there was a He Gets Us ad last year that went really viral. I'm not even going to try to pronounce Jamie's last name because I'm not going to get it right. Jamie lives, I believe, in Scotland. He or somewhere over that direction. I'm American. I'm sorry. So I live in America. How am I supposed to know where y'all live? It's somewhere across the ocean. So Jamie made an ad. It went viral, the first one. It got millions of views. He put this one that we're about to watch out this year. Almost, the man can edit apparently like Superman because this came out like before the Super Bowl was over. And so he had some gas in the tank. I think he was just waiting to see what they put out. And so here is Jamie's version of the He Gets Us ad that makes the He Gets Us ad look like a parody. Here we go.
Your own personal Jesus, someone to hear your prayers, someone who's there. Feeling unknown and you're all alone, flesh and bone by the telephone. Lift up the receiver, I'll make you a believer. Reach out and touch faith. Reach out and touch faith.
All right. Rob was taking the literalness of those lyrics to heart. I'm not sure what that song was, but I'm sure it's going to be copyrighted by YouTube. So, hopefully you can see that video. If not, I'll link it in the description below. I think here's the thing, watching this, in light of the situation that just happened in the Congo at the beginning of February, I think that is all the more like, is it the Congo? I think it was the Congo. The 70 Christians that were beheaded. It's all the more like sort of level setting for believers, American believers specifically, for like what does greatness look like outside of the whole he gets us thing, right? Though I think here's the interesting thing about Jamie's take on these. If you guys want to watch the other one, I'll try to remember. I'm always bad at this. I'll try to remember to link in the description. His first one. Jamie's mock-ups of these are all about like Jesus and the change that understanding the life, death, burial, resurrection has on people's lives, right? The last one was all about conversions. This one's all about like what it looks to follow Christ in difficult situations. Whereas the he gets us at is these ads that try to convince you like, oh no, he understands you. Like Jesus is like, the ball's like he's over there playing basketball with you. He's over there living in your life, doing your thing. He understands. Like it's not this huge disconnect. It's a very like trying to personalize Jesus in a way that you don't feel like he's far off and gone. And Jamie's are much more like this is what it looks like to follow. Like this is what it means to be changed. And I think what it really does is show the difference between two ways to look at what Christianity, like two lenses of how to process Christian. One of them is like, I need him to feel like he gets me or he understands me. The other one is like, this is what he does. Like, this is transformation. It's not like a consumeristic model, I guess. I think the he gets us as are very based on a consumeristic idea of Jesus, whereas Jamie's are very based on transformative power of Christ.
I think that so he gets us is an ironic campaign name because I think so to put it in ex post form, I think that one of them is focused on him getting us, and one of them is what happens when we get him, right?
Cool. I like it.
Like,
yes.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, obviously not everyone is going to end up in a situation where you're going to be beheaded for Christ, right? But you might, right? I think that, so in our own congregation, there was a family who walked through months of just struggle and tragedy. And as Christians suffering, their primary job, there is a need, right, for the Christian to know that God is with them, to know that Christ is like there, to know that they're seen and not ignored. I mean, that is a need, right? But the proper playing out of that, it leaves us getting him as well, right? Like there's a twofer that happens there. And when we get him, the focus is not me. At some point, the focus, even for those that I was alluding to a second ago, their focus and job, as hard as it was, and even is, let's say, is to suffer well, right? To suffer in a missionary way, to suffer to proclaim Christ like this. When you suffer and you do it in such a way that you're still praising God throughout, right? You're still unapologetically worshiping and trusting the Father. Then those from the world look at that, and it doesn't make any, like the time of all times when you ought to be shaking your fist at God and going, what in the heck are you doing? You're still worshiping him. Like, you're still going to church. You're still doing all the same things. You're still right in love with this Christ you serve. And so like, that's the difference, I think, to me, is one of these campaigns, or one of these commercials is really focused on me, and one of them is more focused on him. I think that's the difference. It is, like you mentioned, transformation, and I think that's that this is the outplaying of that transformation. It's almost like if he gets us is legitimate, it would be legitimate to someone who's a brand new believer. If at all, it would be to that person. And then the one that we just watched would be someone who's been being transformed by Christ for a while, right? For a decent amount of time. So
what I want to do, I'm sorry, I was looking over to the side here. What I want to do is I want to show the other one to show the contrast. To show the contrast. I didn't think about that, or I would have had it pulled up. So give me 1 second here. Just hearing it seems like he used the same song. So he just completely was like, nope, we're doing this. All right, so let me pull this up here on this screen, because I think just to show the difference. So Jamie's, just to kind of, again, calibrate set here, his was all about greatness isn't seen from the world's perspective. It is not measured by what worldly greatness would look like. Rather, it is again, like what you just said in your last statement there, is it's about this, like, I'm following Christ. This is what it looks like even in the hardest of times. Now, all the examples that Jamie used there were going against the grain, essentially, of what common sense would maybe tell you, and following God. So here is the other one, or the original one.
Your own personal Jesus, someone to hear your prayers, someone who's there. Feeling unknown and you're all alone, flesh and bone by the telephone. Lift up the receiver, I'll make you a believer. Reach out and touch faith. Reach out and touch faith.
Okay, so he did use the same song, which I can guarantee you then 100% getting copyrighted this whole video. So it's just the reality of it. Welcome to YouTube. So that, I think, is distinctively different. Also, why Jamie's commercial would not be shown during the Super Bowl, because most of this persecution that is being done in all of those circumstances is either done by a government or another religion, and we can't make either one of those people mad. So that would be shown. Jamie's also, I'm sorry, the original one, rather, is all contrast of people. And I think this goes back to the whole point we made in a couple of podcasts ago about progressive Christianity. It is all examples of people helping people, which again is good, but also goes on to another podcast we talked about, where it's really the emotional play more than it is the substantive play of how Jesus interacted with people, past the example part of it. I think this ties into a lot of what we've already talked about in past podcasts, Rob.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So we'll see you next time. No. Oh, we have more to say?
We do.
Oh,
I do.
yeah.
I don't know if you do. I could talk all day.
Yeah. No, I think this particular He Gets Us commercial isn't quite as heinous as some of the other ones, right? And I'm sure strategically they've taken a lot of heat over the past few years, but it's still, you're right, and I think that there's still there's definitely a lot of subtle, like, unity kind of messaging and some things like that, and it's not that unity is bad, of course that's not true, right? But unity around what, right? I think is the big question, and some of their past stuff calls some of their past stuff, I think, really called the Christian, or hinted that Christians ought not call out certain sins that are pervasive in our society, and ought to remember that such were some of you, which is true, right? But and so, like, I think that to me, it, like, one of these, I'm almost just repeating what I said at the beginning, because to me it's like one of these is very clearly the Christianity that that is capitulating to the world, that is showing showing the world what the world would like to see Christianity look like, right? And actually, I'm not sure that there's really any mention of Christianity except the one, like, Jesus statement at the end, right? I mean, am I wrong there?
No. I think what you're pointing to is exactly right. So I've had this discussion with you before. The world actually appreciates when Christians do what Christians should do in regards to helping people, providing. I mean, you can look up the history of hospitals. The reason most huge hospitals are named after saints is because Christians are the ones that made them. And so the world doesn't care that Christians act like Christians up to a point. And then they do start to care. And so I think that's the distinctive difference you're pointing out in both of these ads. It's really hard to critique the He Gets Us ad from this year, because basically it would almost as if you're critiquing Christians helping people or being kind or not being biased toward people. Like, so that's where I think I've noticed the quote from Charles Spurgeon that is becoming more and more truthful and pertinent is that discernment is knowing what is almost right from what is right, or something along those lines. I'm sure I screwed that up somewhere. But the point is, his point being is that there's a lot of things that look almost right, but discernment isn't knowing what's almost right. Discernment is knowing what is right and being able to distinguish it. And I think that's the difference between Jamie's ad and the He Gets Us ad, is that really, if you don't have the He Gets Us or Jesus Gets Us at the end, that could be an ad for humanitarian aid or unity for a nation, or it's just help people. just be nice and help people. And unbelievers understand that. I mean,
that ad, Muslims think enough of Jesus to completely agree with that ad.
Exactly. That's exactly my point, is that that's the difference between Jamie's ad and the other one, is that one is really trying to pull at the idea of, hey, you should get along. There's unity to be had, so you have the police officer and the homeless lady. You have, the guy spray painting the get out off the building. You have the guy at the LGBTQ plus parade. You have the mother and the daughter, which that one's really vague about why the mom's crying and the daughter's there. But the point is, you have this idea of unity and caring. That's the whole purpose. Care about other people. And like I said, unbelievers don't have an issue with that. That there's no issue. In fact, they appreciate it when Christians care about each other. They appreciate when Christians are Christians, up until it means standing for your faith in a way that Jamie's ad points out. Up until it means you are outside of an abortion clinic trying to convince mothers not to murder their kids. Up until you're a Christian in the Congo and you are outnumbered religiously and will be possibly could lose everything. Everybody is fine with Christians being nice. Not everybody is fine with Christians saying Jesus is Lord. He is the only way. The Roman Empire, if you read letters, the Romans are writing to each other about Christians. They have no issue with their conduct. In fact, their conduct is of the utmost, they are the best citizens. They don't care about their conduct. They do care that Christians only pray to Jesus. That's a huge issue for them. And so they are not put into the arenas because they are being nice to everyone, or that they're caring for everyone, or they're providing for people even outside of their Christian church. They're put in the arenas because they won't burn incense to the other gods. And so I think that's the distinctive difference between Jamie's ad and that one, is that everybody can agree on the He Gets Us ad, not controversial in the least bit.
Yeah, I think everyone agrees that and loves, like to your point, when Christians love one another and love others who even aren't Christians, up until or in so much as the definition of love gets to be determined by the world, right? So for the Christian, loving someone is confronting them with Christ, is confronting them with judgment that is to come, and is calling out sin the same way that we would do amongst ourselves and even in the mirror, right? This is part of what it means for us to truly love others. We do that for one another within the church, iron sharpening iron, making sure that there isn't sin in the camp. It's not so that we can point and laugh and get mad at people. It's so we can love them well, right? Like that's part of it, helping one another become Christ-like. And so this is just part of Christian love. It's how you love you well, by not ignoring sin, not being in denial about it. It's how you love one another well as Christians, and it is how we love the world well also. It's not only about the pictures that you would see in that He Gets Us ad, even though sure it would include those things, right? Like the loving one another tangibly in sort of service kind of ways, being a shoulder to cry on, helping people in physical harm situations or whatever it might be, right? Of course that's good, right? But it's also not distinctly Christian in the least bit. It's a common grace of the whole world to act in the ways that we saw people acting there. And some of those folks were some of those folks were even public servants in the picture. And so like that's, even if you're a jerk, that's just your job. You know what I mean? So that honestly, like that communicates maybe our debt to them and why we should respect and honor them, but it actually says nothing about like that they're doing what their job is. And so it's I think it's a fine ad, but it doesn't help even one person come to know who Christ is. Because if you want to get, if you want to get technical about it, the second ad is, or the first ad we watched, the second ad that was created, is actually more like Christ, more accurately the service of Christ than the first. Christ did both of those things. He came and served and washed the feet of the disciples and all of those things and ate with tax collectors. And then he died for the saints. He gave his life, right? And so the second one was distinctly Christian.
Well, I think the second one makes you actually ask, who is this Jesus, more than the first one. Again,
Yeah.
I mean,
sure.
there's this. I feel like, to end real quick, I feel like the boardroom of the He Gets This ads are probably just these people sitting around. They're like, gosh, guys, we can't do this again. We can't, all this reaction videos. They hate us. We got to. What is the most mid thing we can do? And they're like, we could just tell people to be nice to each other. Jesus was, yeah, we'll do that. We are going to put the most non-offensive ad out ever, guys. What do we get? We can make a police officer get nice to each other. Yes, let's get a police officer being nice to each other. How about an old man and his wife? That'll pull up. Yes, do that. It's like, it's just, what can we do to do the most mid-level thing ever? Whereas Jamie's ad, like I said, I think if the goal is to get people asking a question about who is Jesus, which is the claim apparently from Ed Stetzer and those guys that kind of run the campaign. The idea is to get people asking the question, who is Jesus? Who is this Jesus? Then Jamie's ad actually does that, because it raises the question, why would anyone in any of the situations mentioned in Jamie's video go through that situation? What Jesus compels somebody to do that? That's insanity. And so I think that actually raises the question of who is this Jesus far more than the being nice to people or coming alongside somebody does. Because again, as you said, anybody from any religion can watch that and agree with it. But you can't watch Jamie's ad and be like, man, why would somebody be in prison for 2 years? Why would somebody want to murder that priest? Why would somebody, live in a place where kidnapping's a thing and all you have to, you just deny Jesus and you don't get kidnapped? Cool. That sounds like an excellent plan. It raises the question of what's your motivation then? Like why would you put yourself, they had released the other day, and we obviously can't show it here, nor would I recommend, honestly, anybody watching it. It's one of those things you can't unsee. But they released some of the video from the people that beat the Christians, those 7, another instance in the Congo. And you're just like, having your head bashed in is a pretty big deterrent for not being a Christian in an area. But when you see the video, you're like, my goodness, these people knew all they had to do was deny Christ. That's all they had to do. And you don't end up like the guy beside you. And they don't. They don't. They in the video, at least that I saw, they're not even pleading for their life. They just know that this is what's going to happen. Jesus is my savior, and this is what's going to happen then. And it's just you go my goodness, that's crazy. That's craziness to the world when you have an out and you don't take it. And I think Jamie's video is the one that really exemplifies that the most, that would make you ask the question, man, if you want to, who is this Jesus then, guys? Because these people are nutty for following him if this is what it gets you. And I think it pushes you into the real why, not the comfortable, I want to be a better person why, but the why would you go, why would you think that's worth it? And actually dig into that. But that's my last comment. What you got?
Yeah, I think a good summation of what you talked about, for me, a good summation of the differences would be, you talked about which one is going to make you ask, who is Jesus? Because that's the goal, apparently, right? for the He Gets Us thing. And I would just say, so the people who, for lack of a better way to say it, starred in each of these commercials, okay? The people who were represented or shown in each of these commercials, which group from which commercial would you have people watching the other one and asking, who is this Jesus? Right? If you had all of the people in the remake watching the actual He Gets Us ad, they would, I'm not even sure they would have anything to say. Like, that's great. And that would kind of be the end of the comments, right? Like, I don't think anyone would, like, it's not nearly as moving as what I'm sure that many of the people who would participate or who are represented, people, groups or types or jobs or whatever that are represented in the actual He Gets Us ad, watching this remade ad, would watch those scenarios play out, and in the name of Christ, and would certainly be more likely to ask, who is this Jesus? Because one of them does just a much better job of making that point. And I think there are all kinds of scriptures that you could have put, like short scriptures or statements from Christ himself and others in the New Testament that you could have thrown onto the very end of that to make the point that this is suffering for his name's sake, right? This is what Jesus is worth. That kind of thing. And it would make you, one of them is just far more powerful and makes the point a lot better.
I said I was done, but I do have one more comment. So I know, bro. I referenced, I don't remember if it was this one or the last podcast. Anyway, I preached on 2 Timothy chapter 3. In it, Paul, when he's talking to Timothy, he tells him, like, my aim, my faith, and he names all these things. And he ends with, my persecutions and sufferings. And then he names where Timothy is aware that these happened and what happened and how God was faithful to him. And then he tacks on, as if maybe Timothy doesn't understand, like, this will also be you. He tacks on a verse that says, all those that follow Christ will suffer as well. And so there's this idea that Paul is really trying to help Timothy understand that while Timothy is setting all things in order in Ephesus, that you can't avoid, it is futile to try to avoid persecution and suffering as a believer, because you will. Now, obviously, in various kinds and in various ways, we are very far off, as far as I can estimate, within America, facing anything that's even close to most of the situations that Jamie mentions in his video. But the reality is that there's a lot more Christians in the world than just in America. And so we have brothers and sisters everywhere that are. And so this is my last comment. The interesting thing within church history, obviously, there's a couple accounts, so you can't confirm if it's true. But one of the accounts of Timothy's life is that he is actually stoned to death, beaten by worshipers of Dionysus, because he interrupts a parade and calls them all out of idolatry. And they're like, well, nice. And then they beat him to death. And so if that was true, if that story did happen, Timothy understood the words of Paul, and we're like, yeah, this persecution and suffering is just a thing. Calling people out of idolatry is going to not usually get you hugs and accolades. And so I hope that story, I guess for Timothy's sake, I hope it wasn't true, because that probably wasn't a wonderful end to life. But if it was, it does give an example of what it means to follow Christ to the very end, caring enough about the people of the city that he goes out and interrupts a parade and says, like, you guys, like, you got it wrong. Like, this, you don't want to be doing this. This is a demon. It's not a god. This isn't who you should be worshiping. Knowing that, like, it's not going to probably go very well. This was a yearly parade for the goddess Dionysus. It's not like he's probably going to make, like, most evangelicals today be like, hey, you're not loving them well. Why would you hold a sign up outside of their parade?
You have to show up, invite them to dinner, get to know them, earn the right.
They gotta know you care before you care, and before they care. And so Timothy's out here in the middle of a parade going, "You're all idolaters. Turn to Christ," and gets beaten for it and dies, or that's how the story goes. And so I think all of that to say this. Jamie's ad is better. That he gets this campaign needs to hire Jamie to make all of their further ads, and I think everyone would be all the better for it if they did. So there you go.
Yeah, I don't know how verifiable some of those stories are in church history. I'm like you. I think that's a really great story, and
it's on brand for Timothy. So
yeah. Right. There is one that is verifiable though, and so this guy rose to prominence in the church and confronted really a bunch of religious people and who were way out of line and failing at all sorts of levels. He confronted them with the truth and called them out.
I think I've heard this before.
And they drug him out of the city and stoned him. And Stephen is the first martyr mentioned in the Bible. That's pretty verifiable. And you know, I mean, that's what it looks like. I think it's interesting, and this will be the last thing that I say. I think it's interesting that in the Beatitudes, I've just been talking in different venues about the Beatitudes being really, really helpful for Christian assurance of salvation, right? And how it actually progresses in an order. A particular order, so that the poor in spirit being first is the most basic underlying condition of the Christian, realizing that I bring nothing to the table before God. I am poor in spirit, and then follows directly. It's followed directly by those who mourn. So not only am I poor in spirit, but I mourn that condition. I mourn my sin. And then it goes on down the line, right? Oh, a peacemaker, all of those things. Where does it end? Like the end of that whole little bit there is those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake. Those who join the long line of Christians and the prophets and those who were killed throughout history, and I think that to me is like the perfect summation of that. I think that video, that commercial that I sent you, that I bookmarked, to me is the epitome of Christian maturity. That ought to be so. I take your point when you said, I hope for Timothy's sake that's not true necessarily, but I think that Timothy would, for that little moment of suffering, there is no better way to go out than even suffering horrendously for the cause of Christ and giving your life for the one who gave his for you.
Yeah, that's the American evangelical still in me being like, oh, but
sorry,
I don't
know. But yeah, no, I think it, I saw that and thought, man, that is an awesome, I mean, even if it had nothing to do with He Gets Us, right? Even if it wasn't a spoof of anything, it's a great video.
Yeah. Yeah, you guys can actually, if you can look, I say this a lot. Sometimes it happens. I'll try to link Jamie's YouTube channel in the description. He makes videos like every week. Like it's not like those, they're like talking head videos, but he's grown quite a subscribership over there because of those. So you might check him out, see if you like him. Cool. I think that's it, guys. Guys, if you like this video, go ahead and like it. If you want more of these videos, go ahead and subscribe. And if you really liked it, you could share it with a friend. Though I feel like, as you said, the first 2.5 minutes are just going to throw them off so bad that they may not finish it. But if they did make it to the end, this banger of a song I'm about to play you is going to solidify that they need to listen to every Babbling Pastor podcast. Guys, thanks for listening. We'll talk to you later. Bye.
See you later.